There is a version of you that people notice without you ever saying a word. Not because you demand attention, but because your presence carries weight. Because your actions are consistent. Because your energy is focused. Because your mind is not scattered across distractions, but directed like a laser towards something meaningful. Becoming impossible to ignore is not about being louder. It is about becoming sharper, clearer, and more deliberate in how you show up every single day. Your brain is constantly evaluating what matters and what doesn't. It's filtering reality, deciding where to allocate attention, energy, and effort. Most people allow this system to run on autopilot, pulled in every direction by notifications, habits, and emotional impulses. But the moment you start training your attention, you begin to take control of your life at a fundamental level. Focus is not just a mental state. It is a biological process. It is something you can train, something you can strengthen, something you can weaponize. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you're telling your brain that your attention belongs to the outside world. You are conditioning yourself to react, not to create. But when you pause, when you sit with your thoughts, when you define what actually matters for the day, you are shifting control back to where it belongs. This small act, repeated consistently, begins to rewire your neural circuits. It strengthens your ability to resist distraction and enhances your capacity to stay engaged with difficult tasks. Becoming impossible to ignore starts with doing the things most people avoid. It means leaning into discomfort instead of escaping it. The brain is designed to conserve energy. It will always try to push you toward what is easy, predictable, and familiar. But growth lives outside that comfort zone. Every time you choose the harder path, you are sending a signal to your brain that you are capable of more. Over time, this changes your baseline. What once felt difficult becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. There is a powerful relationship between effort and reward in the brain. When you engage in focused, deliberate work, your brain releases chemicals that reinforce that behavior. Dopamine is not just about pleasure. It is about motivation. It is about the anticipation of progress. When you learn to associate effort with reward, you create a feedback loop that drives you forward. You stop relying on external validation and start generating internal momentum. Consistency is what separates those who are noticed from those who are overlooked. Not intensity, not bursts of motivation, but sustained, repeated effort over time. Anyone can work hard for a day, a week, even a month. But very few people can show up with the same level of commitment when the excitement fades. That is where transformation happens. That is where you become someone others cannot ignore. Because your actions speak louder than any words ever could. Your body and your mind are deeply connected. The way you move, the way you breathe, the way you hold yourself, all influence how you think and feel. When you train your body, you are not just building strength or endurance. You are building resilience. You are teaching yourself to push through discomfort, to stay present under pressure, to maintain control when things get hard. This carries over into every area of your life. Sleep is not optional if you want to operate at a high level. It is the foundation of everything. Your ability to focus, to learn, to regulate your emotions, all depend on the quality of your rest. When you deprive yourself of sleep, you are essentially handicapping your own potential. You are making it harder to think clearly, to make decisions, to stay disciplined. Prioritizing sleep is not a weakness. It is a strategic advantage. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you realize. The people you surround yourself with, the spaces you spend time in, the content you consume, all of these factors influence your mindset and your actions. If you are constantly exposed to negativity, distraction, and low standards, it becomes incredibly difficult to rise above that. But when you intentionally design your environment to support your goals, you create conditions that make success more likely. There is also a psychological component to becoming impossible to ignore. It is the belief that what you are doing matters, that your effort has meaning, that your work is worth the struggle. Without this belief, it is almost impossible to sustain long-term effort. But when you connect your actions to a deeper purpose, you tap into a level of motivation that goes beyond temporary feelings. You develop a sense of direction that keeps you moving forward even when things get tough. Most people underestimate the power of small, consistent improvements. They are looking for breakthroughs, for dramatic changes, for instant results. But real progress is often subtle. It is the accumulation of tiny actions repeated over time. It is the decision to focus for an extra 10 minutes. It is the choice to push a little harder during a workout. It is the commitment to show up, even when you don't feel like it. These small actions compound, creating results that eventually become undeniable. There will be moments when you feel like you're not making progress, when it seems like your efforts are not paying off. This is where most people quit. They interpret this plateau as failure, as a sign that they are not capable. But in reality, this is part of the process. Your brain and your body are adapting. They are reorganizing, strengthening, preparing for the next level. If you can push through this phase, you will emerge stronger, more capable, and more confident. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, as forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But true discipline is about alignment. It is about making choices that reflect your long-term goals rather than your short-term desires. It is about creating structure in your life that allows you to operate at your best. When you develop discipline, you reduce the need for constant decision-making. You create habits that support your growth, freeing up mental energy for more important tasks. Another critical factor is how you respond to failure. Failure is not something to be avoided, but it is something to be used. It provides feedback, information, data that you can use to improve. When you shift your perspective and see failure as part of the learning process, you remove its power to stop you. You become more willing to take risks, to try new things, to push your limits. Becoming impossible to ignore also means developing a level of self-awareness that most people never reach. It means understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your triggers, your patterns. It means being honest with yourself about where you are and what needs to change. This level of awareness allows you to make adjustments, to refine your approach, to become more effective over time. There is a certain intensity that comes with this way of living, not in a chaotic or overwhelming sense, but in a focused, controlled manner. It is the intensity of someone who knows what they are working toward, someone who is not easily distracted, someone who values their time and energy and uses them wisely. This intensity is not something you fake. It is something that develops naturally as you become more aligned with your goals. At some point, people will start to notice, not because you are seeking their attention, but because your actions are impossible to overlook. Your consistency, your focus, your discipline, all of it creates a presence that stands out. You become someone who follows through, someone who delivers, someone who operates at a higher standard. But this is not about reaching a final destination. It is about the process. It is about continuously evolving, continuously improving, continuously pushing the boundaries of what you are capable of. The moment you become complacent, you start to lose that edge. You start to blend in again. So you keep going. You keep refining your focus. You keep strengthening your discipline. You keep aligning your actions with your goals. You keep doing the work day after day, regardless of how you feel. Because you understand that becoming impossible to ignore is not a single achievement. It is a way of living. It is a commitment to showing up at your best consistently over time.